Hello, and welcome to another episode of Disclosure Nation. If you guys watch this on Rofkin or on YouTube, much appreciated. Make sure you guys, if you guys have any thoughts, please write it down. I love interacting with my audience. We are talking about some very, very important things today, guys. And those very, very important things are we're going to be talking about the different types of rights that we have, and we're going to be talking about the different types of property that exist out there. Here is the overview that we've gone over so far. Freedom begins with acknowledging the source of all freedom, who is God, accepting God's dominion mandate, taking complete and personal responsibility for ourselves and the management of God's property, not ours. He owns it by the right of creation. We do all start out equal before and under the law. That is a maximum. The only way that you can lose sovereignty, property, or equality lawfully to a de jure government under the operation of civil statutory law is to consent to it. You got to give your consent. And the 2 points that we're going to be going over today are there are 3 types of rights. We have public, private, and constitutional rights. There are 2 types of property. We have public and private property. We're going to go into those in depth here right now. So there are 3 types of rights. We have our public rights, and these are also called franchises or privileges. They exist between the government and their citizens, and these citizens are people who have consented to taking on or having these privileges or benefits from the government. These types of franchises or privileges are being called a citizen, being called a driver, a spouse, a taxpayer, these types of things. Now, your public rights are created by Congress, and they're owned and controlled by Congress. They are the property of Congress and the government. So that person is owned by the government. That citizen, that driver is owned by the government, which is why they can bill you if you run a red light, or if you roll over a stop sign, or if you're driving a little bit too fast, which is why they can give you a ticket, because you have consented to participating in the civil society. Okay, so it's created in civil statutes, and attaches to the status of people. Has everything to do with your status and what status you are consenting to. It's the status of people, not on land, not the land itself. So it doesn't attach to the land, it attaches to the status of people. Then we have our public rights, and this exists between human beings, non-residents, and governments only. It attaches to land, not status, just like the Constitution. These are the rights that actually, we will go a little bit more into depth in the next slide. These are also called natural rights or God-given rights. They're protected by common law and the Constitution, but they are not protected by statutory law. Very, very important to understand the difference between those two. At some point in time, we will go over the difference in depth, but you'll understand at least the difference between the different types of rights in the next slide. These private rights are litigated in common law court or in the court of record. The third right that we have is a constitutional right. It exists between human beings, that is non-residents, and governments. It attaches to land protected by the Constitution, and it is acknowledged but not created by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Residents and non-residents can litigate to defend this right in court, so you don't have to have a status in order to have this right or to defend this right. There are 2 types of property. We have public property and we have private property. This is the important point, I think, most important point of this whole teaching today. There are 2 types of property. You have public and you have private. Private property is what you own absolutely and exclusively. Public property is the property that the government owns or controls. The Constitution does not allow the government to own land. And why is that? Because all land belongs to God by creators' rights. The foundation of ownership, the very bottom layer foundation of ownership, is the right to exclude any and all others from using or benefiting from your exclusively owned private property. So, in the case of this vaccine mandate and the vaccine requirements, basically what they are trying to do is they are trying to take your private right and they are trying to switch it over so that other people can benefit from it. They're trying to, because a right, your private right, is legally defined as a property. It's your property. It's your right. So the foundation of ownership is the right to say, no, I don't want to do that, and not be discriminated for it. But what you have today is a bunch of people telling you, you need to just get this, or you just need to do this. It's for the good of everybody else. It's for everyone else's benefit. It's for everyone else's, everyone else needs to use this. The vaccine companies are benefiting from it. The CDC is benefiting from it. Whatever else companies are benefiting from you consenting to, Pfizer is benefiting from it. Johnson & Johnson is benefiting from it. And the foundation, again, is the right to say, I don't want that. I'm going to exclude you from using my private rights because maybe you don't want to associate with their type of business. Maybe you don't understand. Maybe you know that some of these companies are doing something underneath that is not good and very bad, and you don't want to participate and partner with evil, right? So there are many reasons why a person would not want to do that and want to keep their own private rights. There are two ways to protect property. We have the civil statutory law, and then we have the common law. And common law has to do with equity and the Constitution, and it protects our private property. Common law protects only your private property. So that is the property that is important, and it's very important for us to understand if we do truly have private property or if our rights are public rights. And then statutory civil law protects only public property. There are two types of property ownership. We have absolute ownership and we have qualified ownership. Absolute ownership is shared with no one and owned exclusively by you. Qualified ownership is shared with others. And it's kind of like a socialist experiment, you know? Here, you guys, I'll share all of my rights, all of my benefits, everything that I have, you should benefit from. And the Constitution protects, the purpose of the Constitution is to protect and to separate our private rights from our public rights. And it's to protect you and my rights from the government changing my private rights into public rights, which they still do, and they deceive us, and they do it by trickery and deception and by coercion today. So we're going to go over a summary of the principles. There are three types of rights: public, private, and constitutional. The private rights belong exclusively to you and are protected by common law and the Constitution. The public rights belong to the government and apply to status that you consent to. It is also a privilege. Constitutional rights are just that. They are rights that are protected by the Constitution. There are two types of ownership. You have absolute ownership and you have qualified ownership. Now ask yourself, if you truly had absolute ownership and if you truly had private right, would you be able to say no to any type of shot mandate? Would you be able to say no to a shot mandate without the threat of violence, of losing your job, of going to jail, of being ostracized by your workplace and your work environment? I don't think so. So that kind of shows you right there that those rights that most people think that are private rights that they have, they're not. They're public rights. And depending on what you consent to, you can make yourself inferior and unequal to the very government and the offer that they have given to you. I choose not to make myself unequal or to participate in a society that perpetuates inequality or inferiority. I don't want to do that. And so that's why I'm choosing not to get this shot, because I believe that the moment I consent to that, my private rights will transfer to public rights, and then they can constantly tell me what to do and how to do it. So the fear, and I want to be able to have medical autonomy, and I want to protect my private rights. That's it. And that's what they're basically trying to take away from humanity right now, our private rights and our medical autonomy. Because as long as you're willing to consent to one thing, then you'll be willing to consent to, how about every 6 months we get a booster shot? How about every 3 months you take this pill? How about everyone needs to take this shot? So very important that we don't end up in a dystopian TV show or dystopian movie where we're forced to consent to medical tyranny. There are 3 types of property. We have private property and we have public property. Private property is owned by you. You have exclusive right to it. So you should probably know if your rights are private rights or if they're public rights. Because the definition, again, if I haven't said it before, the definition of property includes your private rights. Your private rights are your property. You can do with it what you will, as long as it doesn't infringe upon the rights, freedom, and liberty of other people. And then public property is one that is owned by the government. So this was, I wanted to hit it in here, get it in, get it out, go and do it, guys. And I think that we did that. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you guys for all your support. I hope that you guys are learning something about freedom and sovereignty and the government and how to protect yourselves. So blessings to you, and we will see you on another episode and another show.